Hey everyone, welcome to TV Guys. That was the worst winging I've ever done.
It's not really winging it. That's just announcing the podcast. Is that a bad thing?
It just
I think
stopped.
you just kind of got. I think you just kind of got used to having like a clever intro, which you don't have this week.
True. That's true. And now,
But
because
you
we're
know what?
already knee deep in this is going to be our intro. And I'm just going to be like, what is wrong with you guys? The wrong thing is me. That's
Basically, messing up and stuff like that. That's the reality of the podcast.
I actually had something that I wanted to share, and a little bit I was like, well, gee, how would I tie this in? But this does factor into TV news in the weirdest way possible. Have you heard about like this cinnamon toast crunch thing with the shrimp tails? Have you heard about that news story?
No, but you got me hooked. What?
Okay.
Tell me and the listeners all about it.
I've got you hooked with shrimp tails. But no, that's not where the puns end, weirdly enough. All right, so this person found in their cinnamon toast crunch mixed in a couple of shrimp tails that were coated in like cinnamon and sugar and everything, and they like were pretty rightfully upset, and they messaged Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and they're just like, or General Mills, their parent company, and they're like, yeah, you know what, this isn't okay, and they're like, oh, that doesn't look like shrimp tails or whatever, and like, oh no, they're shrimp tails, and they're cinnamon sugar covered, and all that sort of stuff. But what makes it interesting is a couple different like coincidences. So the guy who found it, his name is Jensen Karp, and his wife, actually, this is where TV comes in, is her name is Danielle Fishel. And who, if you don't know who that is the actress who played
Yep.
Topanga from Boy Meets World. And so you have last name Karp, last name Fishel, finding shrimp tails. And this Karp fella was actually on a podcast a couple different times, this podcast called the Pistol Shrimp Podcast. And that's not even the weirdest part. They bought it at the Costco that is located on Topanga Canyon Boulevard. There's like five different levels of connectivity. It's like when you have all of that together, you manifested these shrimp tails into your cinnamon toast crunch. I don't know how, but they did some sort of multiverse crossing accidentally by having all the pieces in the right spot, and that's how they got shrimp tails in their cinnamon toast crunch. Reality bending.
Also, you just missed the opportunity. Think where do they buy it? Topanga Canyon. You should have said it like that.
And what was he eating these in? His underpants. Not that he poured it into his underpants. That I can understand where you'd get confused.
We don't know.
Yeah, you're right. I guess
You know
I don't know.
what
I
they
really
do in
hope.
their house is their own business.
I'm just gonna go on a limb here.
I
I'm just
thought it
gonna
was like, is someone else going to find? Yeah, I thought you were going to say someone else is going to find the crab legs. It's like a collect them all kind of situation. Like build your shrimp.
Yeah, well, that would be very selfish of them.
Too easy.
Yeah,
I'll give you the other ones, but that one's too easy.
that's my go-to. I am a low-hanging fruit sort of pun maker. If it's there, I'm gonna make it most likely. I
That's fair. That's
I try and actually hold it in, and I try like on some of those like really easy lowbrow ones where it's like anyone could make that joke. I try not to be the guy who makes it, but I mean that only works like 10% of the time.
well. It's kind of like with that's what she said. If someone says, "Oh, that's hard," like that's the easiest one. Like that's get a little bit more creative than that.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Come on, bring some class into your "that's what she says," guys. All right, exactly. So this week we are talking about reality shows. So we actually talked about like what would be my number one reality show a lot last week, so I'm not going to bring it up. But apart from Impractical Jokers, as I was putting my list together, I'm like, I do not watch that much reality TV shows, and in fact, I even probably look down on reality TV because like it hurts. They get the people that it's like you for a lot of these shows. They get the people that's like they're there to make you feel better about yourself as a human being. Like, that's why everyone watched Tiger King. Like, Tiger King is the McDonald's of TV programs. And you're just like, well, my life isn't as much in the toilet as these guys, but so I'm doing okay. I'm doing all right in life.
Hey, that's an insult to McDonald's. I think McDonald's is a little bit higher than that. I think it's maybe like the Taco Bell.
Easy. Oh my gosh. Taco Bell is great, dude. I love Taco Bell.
Okay. So you like Taco Bell more than McDonald's?
I do love Taco Bell more than McDonald's. I was gonna say I also apparently love I also love diarrhea, I guess. No, it doesn't. Taco Bell doesn't do that for me. I know a lot of people. That's the easy joke again. It doesn't do that for me. So if it does for you, I can understand why you might not. And I'm not saying you specifically, Brian. Anyone out there listening, if that does for you, I can understand where the hate comes from. I get it. But Taco Bell,
Yeah.
it's great. It's good food. I enjoy it. I love about Taco Bell that they like change. They have like this new menu item every single month. Like they do this rotating like surprise stuff. I love that. They're like, we're going to try this. If you guys like it, great. If you don't like it, well, it'll be gone in a month anyway. So what? I think that's great.
Yeah. So for reality shows, I kind of did a match style. I have some categories. I have one. Obviously, the big one, I'm going to talk a lot about Survivor. I specifically knew that was going to be the one I'm going to talk the most about. So
Sure.
For all you people who are like, ooh, I'm going to fast forward through Brian talking about Muppets and Power Rangers. Well, you didn't see Survivor coming, did you?
No one sees Survivor coming. No one sees these immunity idols popping up. And then you're like, I'm going to use these. You can't vote me out. Take that, suckers. I think I only got to like one season where they had like, or maybe 2 seasons where they had like immunity idols, like those secret ones that you could present. And like, that's where I stopped. We can go ahead. So I kind of did this in like a top 3 sort of format, but I'm completely fine not doing it that way and just kind of going a little bit like what we did last week, where I'll give you the reins of a lot of this and I'll just kind of add my thoughts as we go. Cause you're more the expert, I feel like, in this area than I am.
Yeah. Just, the third section of my the last category. So Survivor is its own category. The last one is going to be like the junk food of reality shows. They're going to be might be the most fun to talk about. So should we start with Survivor and work our way down?
Yeah, let's start with Survivor.
I haven't talked about it a lot on this podcast, but anyone who knows me knows I am a huge Survivor nerd. I can tell you the seasons and the winners of all 42. Well, no, 42 is still in progress. All 41 seasons, just off the top of my head. So that sounds like you were like sounds like you were a very early day Survivor fan. So I'm gonna throw out some names who I'm guessing that you are familiar with. So like you're probably familiar with like Johnny Fairplay, Richard Hatch, Rupert, Colby, Big Tom, Boston Rob, those guys.
Yep, all of those.
Yep. And so that was so the early days, Survivor wasn't kind of limited to Survivor fans. It was like proper, like these guys were celebrities in their own right. And like there wasn't anybody who wasn't watching Survivor the first maybe I say 5 to 8 seasons, maybe even 8, because the 8th season was the first All Stars. I remember that was a big deal.
Yeah, it was a really good water cooler show to like, oh, did you catch Survivor last night? That sort of, that sort of thing that people rally around really well.
Like they had a joke on Mad TV, and like the punchline is like a Survivor skit, and then the punchline was like, oh, they had a surprise cameo from Colby Donaldson from Australian Outback, and they didn't have to specifically say who he was. Like everyone just knew, oh, it's Colby. Whereas today, if you're going to make that kind of joke, they'd have to have someone say, oh, it's so-and-so from Survivor, because the average person's like, who's that?
Yeah, exactly. And Colby's not even a winner. He's a runner-up, which I think he should have won. I like Colby a lot, but.
Well, that he could have won. It was his own choice, because if he had gone against Keith instead of Tina, he would have won. That's gossip from 20 years ago. But yeah,
I'm still not over it. I'm still hung up on this. So here's something I'll bring up about the Survivor early days is that the Survivor has its own category for us because of how influential it is as a part of that too. Like, sure, it's been on for a long time, but it really paved the way for reality TV. We didn't have something like reality TV before Survivor. We had maybe we had news interviews, like, so real people that way. We had game shows, but someone at some point saw like the idea. I guess we had like Real World, that sort of thing. I think that came before Survivor technically, but they saw
Yeah,
like
I
kind
think
of
so.
those functions of like, let's make this a competition. Let's get these real people. We don't have, I mean, the salary is going to be what they're competing for. Let's just do this, throw them together. And it was a phenomenon. It was culturally huge. It was like as big as some of the other big shows of the day. Like people, like I said, they rallied around this. This was a Marvel movie type talking about sort of thing when it came out.
Yeah, one of the, I think it was season two, the Australian Outback. I think the premiere aired after the Super Bowl. Like one of them did, like it was that big. Like they always save the after Super Bowl for whatever the big show is.
Yep.
I mean, Survivor is not even way down on the list now.
Yeah. Yeah, and then like they would do the big live finale in front of everyone where they announced the winners and all this, and it was, and then like they'd always have the people who were voted out the day after on Good Morning America. Like it was a big deal. It was in the papers. People were celebrities, and then the first winner, Richard Hatch, also like he was he was such a great winner for the
Yeah.
show because he did some crazy things. He went naked on the show, and everyone was just like, "Why?" And he's just like, "I'm just gonna be in the buff all day." And then
Well,
he also like cheated on his taxes, didn't pay the taxes for this $1 million, and
yeah,
got arrested. Huge story. It's like created
yeah.
storyline after storyline.
Looking back, people will remember Richard Hatch. Oh, he's the fat naked gay guy who won Survivor, which he was the fat naked gay guy who won Survivor. But I recently, probably within the last year, I rewatched Borneo, the first season. And people don't realize he actually was a really, really great strategic player. And especially in those early days, like a lot of people were not getting the strategy, but they were getting the survival part of it. But he was the main one who realized like, I need to be on the numbers. I need to be on people's good side. I need to he manipulated the votes, and looking back, you can telegraph his win all along.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not going to talk about a ton of like individual moves all the way through the game, but I will say this move that Richard Hatch did in the final three, which I think is really impressive. So it's the final three challenge where it's the final three people. Whoever wins that challenge at the tribal council gets to choose who's going to be the last jury member and who they go up against as for the jury to choose to win.
Mm-hmm.
Final three was him, and do you remember Rudy, the really old guy who like everyone loved?
I do remember Rudy. Yep.
So it's him and Rudy and this girl Kelly, and Richard made what seemed like a dumb move was actually a genius move. He voluntarily stepped out of the challenge. He said, "Oh, I'm out," because the whole thing was like you have to stand on a perch and keep your hand on the idol. Last one to do it without moving your hand or stepping off the perch, you lose. Because Rudy was the fan favorite. If either of them went up against Rudy, they would lose, and so he didn't want to go up against Rudy. But also, this especially in the beginning, like he would have been crucified by the jury if he had betrayed Rudy, who was his closest ally, and voted him out. So then by doing that, he basically is gambling that like some 20-year-old fit woman is going to be able to, last in a challenge over a 70-year-old man, which she did. And then that put Kelly in the spot. She also doesn't want to go against Rudy. So then he could get rid of his biggest competition, get rid of Rudy without being the one to betray him. And so he got to go up against Kelly in the finals without turning on his as alliance. And then he ended up winning in a 4-3 vote.
Nice. That is a good strategy. I find it also funny you have players like Johnny Fairplay who was too smart for his own good sort of thing, where I don't think he was that great of a strategist. He just was really comfortable with lying and really confident in it. And so like it backfired. Everyone saw straight through him. And I think he was brought back maybe for another like All-Stars or a Heroes versus Villains sort of thing. And again,
he brought back
they all saw through him. Right.
Well, he also kind of didn't want to go. He didn't really want to be there the second time around. There was some stuff going on, but yeah, he did make it all the way to the third place. He was the last jury member in his first season.
Yeah,
but that's what Survivor to me. Like I don't care. Like now they're all about gimmicks. Like there's going to be this special idol, this special advantage, and theme is going to be this for the season. I don't care about any of that. Even like all the way through, if it's a good season with interesting players, it's going to be a good season. You can dress it up however you want. throw in all the idols you want, and some of that stuff can be really interesting. But when it comes down to it, interesting players going to make for the better seasons. And so obviously, out of 42 seasons, some seasons are kind of duds. Some seasons I love to rewatch. I'm currently rewatching Marquesas season 4, which was Boston Rob's first season.
Yeah, Boston Rob was a great player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was. Except people don't realize in his first season he didn't even make the jury. No, he made the merge, but he didn't make the jury. Yep. It wasn't until All Stars when he got together with Amber. That season, like all of the big name players who won, they all went early. But that was a season that Boston Rob made a name for himself, and he was a big target going forward. And he's so far the only 5-time surviving player.
Yeah, and Rob was another type of that, like the same skill set of like maybe that Johnny Fairplay, where it's like, yeah, he's a strategy guy, but everyone sees right through him. So they know that he's manipulative, but like he was able to manipulate his way well enough into the merge of the tribes, but not well enough to make it that much further. So it's like everyone's like, okay, at this point, he's more of a detriment than he is an asset, and we got to get rid of him. You're right. I do remember that he didn't make it super far there.
Yeah. See, for me, like Survivor, obviously it has nostalgia because my family started watching it when I was 14, season 2. And so like going way back, and the game has changed a lot since then. Like they don't play the theme song anymore. They don't have at the end. They don't give them time to walk past the torches of all the past survivors. They don't do the survivor auctions anymore and all this kind of stuff. But it's still like, it's really interesting to see like, what are they going to do in this situation? How is this person going to get themselves out of the vote? How is the vote going to turn out? And like that's the strategy of it, and the interesting characters are what keeps me coming back.
If you had a top season, what would you say would be like the number 1 season for you?
That is a loaded question. I probably should have came prepared for that. I could name a ton of them, but I'm going to go. I think the easy answer, which is not my answer, would be Heroes versus Villains, because that was a really good season. But I think season 27, Blood versus Water, the gameplay is really interesting. It's a half returning seasons. They had half of them are returning players, and they're coming back to play with like a family member. So like there's Rupert and his wife came on there, or Tyson and his girlfriend came on there. We had like mothers and daughters. Like that's when Sierra voted off her mom, and it was a big deal. That was one of my favorite seasons for sure.
Yeah, my top season was probably the pirate season, the first introduction of Rupert. I loved that character.
That's a great one, yeah.
I also loved how much Rupert he embraced the pirate theme super well without, I feel like, losing who he was. He just like leaned into we're pirates, that like having that, like it started off that season where they all were like told that they were gonna be getting like some promotional footage for the show, and so to all dress up, and then like that's when they dropped them off. So they all are dropped off in these nice clothes, and they come to like this town of like, okay, we need to get supplies at this town. Like that's part of the thing. And so one team left all of their stuff next to Rupert, who was guarding that team's stuff. And Rupert's like, we're pirates. I'm not just going to like no one was there guarding their stuff. So he took all of their shoes and then moved away from them, and like so that when they come back they wouldn't find him. Like that's so funny. And it's like he's not mean. He was just embracing the whole idea. He was taking an advantage where he saw one.
Yep, that season was also a Johnny Fairplay season. It was also the introduction of Sandra Diaz Twine, who's won Survivor twice now.
I don't remember who that is.
Oh, she won that season, and she also went on to win Heroes versus Villains. So she for the longest time was the only 2-time winner, and the only reason that anybody else joined her as a 2-time winner was because they did Winners at War, where all of the contestants were previous winners.
Gotcha. Nice. Cool. Yeah. All right, so that's the Survivor category. What's another category of reality TV you got?
The next category down would be just some of the other mainstream ones in this category. I've got like The Amazing Race, The Bachelor, and The Biggest Loser.
Nice.
Bachelor/Bachelorette, because it's the same thing.
Okay, go ahead and talk about one that you really like in there, and I'll put one that I think fits this.
Well, one that I'm kind of growing out of it, but for a while I was super into it. The Biggest Loser was really interesting to watch, like all the transformations. But it's also interesting, like I was watching The Biggest Loser when I was probably like at one of my worst for like health wise. Like me and my roommate would load up on McDonald's and watch The Biggest Loser.
Like, look at those losers. Oh,
But then realizing like it's probably not that healthy because I mean these people you're not going to be with a trainer 24/7 spending like half your day in the gym. So I mean of course a lot of these winners ended up gaining the weight back.
yep.
It's like I think it's more so for entertainment than for actual health loss. I mean of course there were some tips along the way.
And that's a great point about reality TV is that reality TV, when they have like a goal, it's not really reality because Biggest Loser, you're absolutely right, is not the way to lose weight. It's not the way to live a healthy lifestyle, is to deprive it. Because pretty much they're like, okay, deprive yourself of food for just this little bit of time. Be anorexic for a couple of weeks. Yeah, sure. They would like be like, okay, here's some healthy eating to do. But it's just like, this is all only able to do this when everything is so cultivated around you. Plus, if you hear like interviews with Biggest Loser contestants, they talk about how little gym time they actually had compared to how much it made it seem like they were in the gym. And it's like they were like on these weight loss like pills as well, and like diet suppression pills and stuff like that off screen. There was all this stuff behind the scenes as like Biggest Loser was terrible in terms of health wise, but weirdly enough the dating side of it that was completely unintended was like the Biggest Loser has more successful relationships than The Bachelor and Bachelorette combined. I don't know if that still is, but that was the case like 10 years ago. And so it's another thing of like, that's the same thing with Bachelor, Bachelorette. This is not the way you do relationships, and the same problems that cause you to maybe be single in the first place and then were emphasized in this giant, terrible way of dating. They are still there, and they are still even bigger because of the way that you guys met. There's no solid foundation for the relationship.
Yeah. And I don't really have anything else about the Biggest Losers. Move into like the Bachelor, Bachelorette. That stuff too it is just crazy. It's like women who don't like when a guy is dating more than one woman are obsessed with a show where a guy is dating more than one woman.
Yeah. And I know a number of people who love Bachelor, Bachelorette, and it's easy to get swept up in this, like, oh, I just really hope that it works for them. Because yeah, you do want good things for these people, but there's also that side of it where it's like you can feel good about either your relationships or your life, or sometimes even your singleness when you're watching them and be like, I am not nearly as screwed up as some of these people in this, or like I would like to be the Bachelor and have all of these beautiful women chasing after me. There's a little bit of that. It's amazing how the psychology works of us latching on to these ideas and the different reasons people have for enjoying reality shows.
Yeah. Well, and with that, like, I think the greatest reaction I can think of is it's got to have happened a few different times, but Parks and Rec, whenever Ben Wyatt would just look and say, "Good Lord!" Like as far as when he was like that, biggest reaction for the Bachelorette for that or the Bachelor, they always start off with like all the women have to make an entrance. They get out of like the limo and they got to make some sort of comment, and like they're all making super suggestive comments just to like get their 5 seconds of fame. Like, I'm not wearing shoes and I have underwear to match. And in my head, I'm just like, good Lord, as Ben Wyatt.
Oh, okay. So contestant number 2.
It's just, I don't know. That's what I like about Survivor. I mean, Survivor, everything's on the table. It's like, yeah, we're like, they don't try to be all beautiful people. We're stranded on an island. We're going to survive. We're going to do challenges and this and that. There are successful couples from there as well. Yeah. But it's not as phony as The Bachelor.
And let's be fair to Survivor. It still has phoniness. There are still some things that, behind the scenes, like obviously they're going to be taking like vitamins and stuff like that for different, that health-wise stuff. But there is a lot more of like this realistic side versus, it's you can do some clever editing. You can do some other stuff to like create tension, and I've seen that done a couple times in Survivor. And they're like, we don't have something for this week that is going to be really dramatic, so let's kind of create something and make it seem like it's more dramatic than it is. And I remember that happening, but I don't remember the specific examples. I just remember watching like that was a non-issue. You guys act like it was an issue, and it's a non-issue.
Yeah.
Guarantee it.
Well, it's all editing. I mean, you got 3 days of like 2 or 3 tribes to edit down to 45 minutes. So yeah.
The other show that I liked in this category at first, but then like reading more about this episode should be titled like Matt destroys your conceptions about reality TV. If you're like, I love reality TV, and then like I'm like, well, this is where this one sucks and this one sucks. So here you go. Here's another one. Extreme Makeover Home Edition. I loved that show. I thought it was so much fun. I'm not even an HGTV
I've heard
guy.
so much crap about that as well. Yeah.
There's a lot of people who they love HGTV. That's not my thing. I just liked the excitement of Ty Pennington and like what he'd bring to them. And I didn't care so much about the specifics that was going on. But then, of course, everyone loves the end of the show to see the big reveal of what they did and how they took these people's lives and built a house that was specific to their wants and needs. Well, here's the problem with that shoots your property value up crazy high. And a lot of these people that were chosen, they're chosen because they've got these economic problems to begin with. And what happens when you have economic problems and then suddenly your property taxes skyrocket? Guess what? You can no longer afford your house. So many of these people that were on Extreme Makeover Home Edition had to sell their house within a couple of years because the taxes were too big, and they had to downsize and downgrade themselves to something smaller. So there you go. Ruined that show for you.
It's like when Oprah gives you a car, you have to pay all the taxes on it.
I know, but that was a jerk move from Oprah, because she was just like, home makeover, they didn't have any like control over property tax. Oprah had control over, I'm going to give it this way and I'm going to declare it this way as a tax write-off for me, and I'm going to put the tax burden on you. I'm sorry for all the people who love Oprah, but she did that. And that I don't think that's cool. Like, oh yeah, she gave out cars. Yeah, but she also gave out a tax burden. So
which is why in that situation I would just immediately sell the car, and hopefully you have enough to pay the taxes and still have some profit left over. And then it's like, well,
yeah, government. Here's another show before we get into like your junk food ones. Here's another show that I actually enjoy. I don't watch it all the time. Again, I'm not a big reality show fan, but if I had to talk about shows that are good, I think the most realistic one that is a good reality show is probably Shark Tank. I know there's some cultivated responses in that. What'd you say?
I forgot about this one. It's a good one. I'm glad you mentioned it.
Yeah, Shark Tank to me is like the reality TV at its best, because it has actual inventors and actual products, and it is stuff that you can actually buy online. I'm wearing a belt that a designer from Shark Tank like created, and we saw it, like, that's a cool belt. And so we went on, we were able to find it because he was given the funds, and it's a win for everyone. It's a win for the consumers who are watching this, like, oh, that's actually a cool project or a cool product. It's a win for the investors because they might be able to get more money out of it. Of course, there's still the risk that everything's gonna go. And then there's the there's the win for the inventors. It's great. I think this is a genius concept, and there's a reason why it's been as successful as it is.
The only time I really saw any conflict, which was a really interesting episode, I forget the details of it, but one or two of the sharks went in on a deal. They said, yeah, like I'll make this deal with them. And the other sharks were mad because they thought it was a complete terrible deal, and they viewed it as like charity, and like they were saying that's not what the show is about. We're not a charity case. Like, you guys are just being nice to these people. Like, you should just be honest and blunt and say their product sucks and their deal sucks. And like a couple of the sharks actually like walked off the set because of this conflict between them. And I wish I knew the details. If I remember Shark Tank, I would have looked it up so I could talk more about it. But do you remember that at all?
That sounds vaguely familiar. They've had things like that I know that I've seen, where I don't know if they like walked off completely, but there had been like fights that break out among the sharks where it's that sort of thing. you like don't give charity, or like you're really being terrible at this deal, or like you're the only one who's going to say yes to a deal because you know you're going to get this huge stake out of their company, and it's going to be this uphill battle for them. It's like you're honestly pretty close to ripping them off by what you're doing, but because none of us are in and you know how desperate they are, that sort of thing. And so, I've seen some of that tension, and that I feel like is good reality. I don't feel like that's scripted. I know some people might think that is. I don't feel like it is. If you think it is, whatever, that's fine. But
I think with these things, it's not so much that they're scripted; it's just that they're edited. You can edit things to look however it looks. Like, going back to Survivor, because I'll just admit I'm talking about Survivor a lot. Whenever they have the interviews, they'll pull contestants out, they'll tap and talk to the camera for their talking heads, and they'll talk about what's going on. Those interviews are probably about half hour, 45 minutes long, and they'll just pull out little quotes from here to pull it here and there. And one thing that you'll notice in Survivor, whenever someone says to the camera like something like, "I feel like I'm doing great tonight. I'm in a great spot. I'm not worried about tribal council," they might be the one going home. Yep. But probably everybody in the tribe probably said that, but they probably just pull the quote for the person who's getting voted out, because that's going to be the most dramatic version of it. So it's not that it's a lie; it's just conveniently edited.
Absolutely, that's a great point. We talked about Bachelor and Bachelorette, and I left out one that's kind of in that same realm. My wife, she watches a different one. She watched like a season of that Love Is Blind that was on Netflix. I think it was Netflix. I watched a different reality TV show that I actually really liked, and this one leans into like the fakeness of something, but talking about social media and how that influences people. And so the show is called The Circle, and it takes like these.
I've heard about that.
It's a really good show. It takes like 8 people, puts them into like this one apartment building that they have, and they've decked out their apartments and everything, but they're stuck in their apartments. I mean, they have like roof access where they can have like certain times where they can go on roof and be in the hot tub and stuff like that. But it's to be away from all the other contestants. So their only interactions with the other contestants are through their own social media app called The Circle. And so they'll like play games through The Circle, and it kind of acts like it's a Siri, but it's, I think, like a programmer will type in stuff and have The Circle like say what the programmer's typing in. And so, they'll like play games, they'll like open chats and have back and forths. And, even the first season, there was some that was like, I chose to represent myself. Or another one was like, I'm a guy, but I'm actually pretending to be my girlfriend. She's beautiful. She's a model. I'm like, I know that in order to be successful in this game, to be like voted of like a top influencer, because like the lowest influencer in that group gets voted out. They have like their own metrics, so that it kind of goes that way. So it's like, in order to be this great, I know that people want to see a beautiful woman, so I'm going to pretend to be my girlfriend. So it's like there's people that are intentionally trying to catfish in that to get ahead, and then there's people that are like intentionally just being themselves. And it's a really smart idea, and it's a good show, and it's fun to kind of watch how people use social media. And it's a great way to kind of shine a light, especially for those. I think all of us know there's a certain amount of manufacturing and editing through social media, but to actually see how someone does it in the context of that show was very interesting.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's got 3 seasons now on Netflix.
Nice.
And I think there's a UK version too, or something.
To me, they all have different versions. Yeah. The other one that I feel like I have to mention just because of the popularity of it. I've seen a few seasons of it, which is The Amazing Race.
Yep.
I never got into that at the same level of Survivor, but that is interesting too, because then you get the cultural aspects of where they got to fly to this country, from this country, and all that.
Yeah, it's almost like you mix Survivor with Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego.
Yes.
So that's like the pitch meeting for it right there.
Yeah, and there's been a number of Survivor couples, including Boston Rob and Amber, who've gone on to go on to the race.
Yep, I do remember when they were on there. I'm like, oh, I might watch this season. I think I watched like a couple episodes. I don't think I ever watched a full season of The Amazing Race, but it was one of the shows that like, I'll watch this here. I'm not invested enough in the characters, but I'll watch this episode because I like the big locations and seeing that. And I think that was part of the draw, is seeing these people in these giant locations.
Yeah. Do you have anything else in this category, Matt?
Nope, because let's talk about the trash.
All right. So we're talking about reality shows. We got to go to MTV in the early 2000s. There are so many of these things. Let's
Yep.
see. Starting with Next. Do you ever watch Next?
I haven't even heard of Next, actually.
Ooh. Afterwards, I'll send you a link. We actually did
Uh-oh.
a Christian parody of Next at Bethel.
Oh no.
Um, so it's where either a guy or a girl is the contestant, and there's three potential like girlfriends or boyfriends, and they start the day with one of them, and if at any point he like there's a deal breaker or he's just kind of bored or whatever, he can say next, and that girl leaves, and they bring in the next girl from the bus,
That's
or it's a girl with three guys or something.
that's actually how I dated, weirdly enough. Hey,
Interesting.
no one else was in on it. Just in the middle of the day, I'm like, next. And everyone just kind of looked at me. And I was like, girl, over there by the wall. Come on. You're up.
And Angie's like, me?
Yeah, yeah. That's how I met her. It was great.
No, we did a parody where it was it was Alex Bolio dating, and then his like Laura was one of his dates too. It was interesting. um, I'll send that video to you. But one of the things that's interesting, they always have the thing where the girls step or the guy they step off the bus and they're like freeze framed, and it shows them like three facts about them, and it's always the first two are normal. It's like Jennifer, she goes to college, she works as a waitress, and then the third one is always super random, like she hates purple gift wrap or like something super like what. I stole that bit from Aziz Ansari. I'll give him credit. He did that joke about Next, but it's true. The third bullet point on everybody was always something super random, and it's just like it's always the drama because then I always have the two girls back in the bus. They're always catfighting, like, "Ooh, he's gonna say next on her, and I'm gonna win." They're like, "No, I'm gonna win," or the guys are doing it too. It's just like such trash TV.
Yes. Yeah, that does sound like it. I speaking of trash TV, so I think I would categorize this as reality TV show, but I think a term that people can usually use when they're talking about this would be like talk TV, and that would be like
Yeah.
the big name in this was Jerry Springer. Jerry Springer was huge when I was in
Hmm.
as a kid, but it was huge in like that train wreck sort of way. It wasn't like if you're a self-respecting person, you watch Jerry Springer. It was kind of like if you watch it, you probably didn't tell too many people about it unless you knew that they watch it. And then it was like one of those, oh my gosh, did you watch that show? Yeah, it was so crazy. It's so stupid. Like you acknowledge it. This is another one of those, the McDonald's version of TV.
Yes.
It's like you acknowledge it's ridiculous. And it like I actually love Weird Al. He did a song called Jerry Springer that it's the parody off of One Week by
Oh, I
Bare
remember
Naked
that. Yeah.
Ladies, and
Yep.
it's a really good song, and it's exactly like what you would expect from Jerry Springer. Just all these ridiculous guests. They find the most ridiculous, the most trashy, the most mentally unbalanced.
Hmm.
And there is like if you pull yourself out of it and you look at it and like remember that these are people, it hurts to actually like look at it and be like, wow, these people are so living in such a pain
Hmm.
and such a terrible existence that this is their life and now it's displayed for all. But it's like you don't view them as the people, you just view them as like this trash entertainment. And
Yeah.
so you're like, I want to see a fight. It's like watching NASCAR for the crashes. You just want to see
Yeah.
everything explode.
Yeah, that you mentioned the Jerry Springer song. My favorite lyric from that song is "It's been 1 week since we got the feud between the KKK and the gay Jewish black dude."
There was another one that like rhymed shortly after that of like the um all those midget porn stars who are all nude or something like that.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that. It's weird that we're both on the same page, knowing Weird Al lyrics. I think it's on brand for us, though.
He also has a point like during the instrumental breakdown where they do like a like if Weird Al and this woman were on Jerry Springer's like, I've been dating your sister. Well, so have I. And you know, like it's just like going for more and more. Well, I've been sleeping with your pet Wolfie. No, not Wolfie. It's
Yeah,
like, well, I've been sleeping with your pet goat. That goat doesn't love you.
I remember that. It's all coming back to me.
It is, yeah. So I mean
Okay.
that was like that set a precedent for opening the door for any of these talk shows. Like you can mock Dr. Phil, but he never goes
Yeah.
like that trash. I'm not a Dr. Phil fan. there's a lot of fake to what he does, but he doesn't go trashy. Like Steve Wilkos, he goes that trashy. I don't know if you ever watch any Steve
Maury
Wilkos.
Povich.
Maury Povich will go that trashy. He has like that. Are you the father? Like the fact that is such a big deal is nuts. Dr. Oz doesn't go trashy. He just goes weird.
Well, Maury Povich also had the people with a really weird fear. It's like, this girl's afraid of pickles. Okay, can you bring out the giant platter of pickles? And then, of course, they run off stage. Ah!
It's so ridiculous what people will agree to be on TV about.
Mm-hmm. So kind of going back to the MTV stuff, I talked about next. The one that's similar to that, did you ever hear of or watch Room Raiders?
I didn't. Nope.
Okay, 2 for 2 on these.
Man, so that one is or maybe I rock that I don't know these terrible shows.
I guarantee some of our listeners are like, I remember watching. If you're people who are our age, watch these. Again, it's either a girl choosing between 3 guys or a guy choosing between 3 girls, judging them based solely on their bedroom. So they always have the scene where they show up and they're like the 3 guys, and they make it seem like, oh, they didn't know they're coming. They grab them real quick so they don't have time to clean the room, hide the room, whatever. And the only thing they take out any pictures or anything that could identify who they are. And then the girl gets to like a little spy kid, gets to be judging based on his room. Of course, they always have the big funny thing where they check the bed with a black light. You fill in the blanks there.
Oh my gosh.
And then at the end, after she's seen all 3 guys' rooms, then she's standing there with the 3 guys, and she doesn't know which one's which, and she says, "I'm gonna pick the guy who had room 3," and he's like, "Well, that's me," or vice versa with the girls, and it's just, of course, I guarantee that they probably plant some stuff in the rooms to make it more interesting, like, oh my gosh, look what he had.
There's a version of that we talked about. We talked about the show last week, Impractical Jokers. There's a version of that they do as a challenge, but they do that purposely to mess with the other guys. If you're familiar with Impractical Jokers, of how they do that, and I like that. I think that's great. When it's like, let's manufacture fake, let's manufacture creepy, and see how people respond to walking in and there's a fat guy in a pool of Jello, just like pouring baked beans on himself or something like that. Like, how do you react to something like that? I think that is a lot of fun, and that's a better way to go about it than however this was.
Well, I have one more that's within the junk food category. No, I have a lot more in the junk food category, but one more junk food that's dating related. So I'll get that one out of the way.
Okay.
And based on you haven't seen Next or Room Raiders, so I'm guessing you haven't seen Parental Control.
No, I haven't heard these 0 for 3 on even hearing of these shows.
So this one, again, there's got to be a lot of staging. It's always the parents have either a son or a daughter. Like say it's like their daughter has a boyfriend that neither of the parents like. And so what happens is they all agree to this. The dad and the mom each separately pick a potential boyfriend. And then the mom and the dad and the boyfriend they don't like are all sitting at home watching a live feed as the girl goes on a date with the 2 guys who her parents picked out. At the end, she has to choose, do I stay with my boyfriend that you don't like, or else do I pick to date one of these 2 guys? And again, you get the trash talking with the parents and the boyfriend, like, ooh, look at that. He opened the door for her. Not like you're a piece of crap, and like stuff like that.
Oh, this is so much fun, but if you ever touch my daughter again, I'll kill you.
Yeah.
That is such a weird concept. I mean, all these are weird concepts. See, I'm thinking for like trashy, like I think of MTV, and I think of I don't know if
these are MTV.
These are MTV. Okay, I think of like a little bit later than that, like my college years. A couple of programs were bigger. So there's one that had a spinoff. It's called 16 and Pregnant, and then its spinoff, Teen Mom, which took like just 4 of the moms from 16 and Pregnant and made a reality show about them in general. And I just remember watching this. And again, it's the same thing where it's like you either are entertained, or if you just are able to see like past that, it's like you hurt for them. It's there because like you've got these teen mom people that were on there. Like later, there's some that they have restraining orders against the baby daddy. One of them went to jail. One of them became like a porn star, and it's just like all this stuff that's like, yeah, of course the bad choices you made that we all saw coming, that you kept making in this show, have led you to make even worse and worse and worse decisions. And so it's like,
Yeah.
I don't understand watching those, because it hurts. It hurts to watch people make these bad choices.
Yeah. Okay, here's one that you definitely have. You know what you didn't hear of Punked with Ashton Kutcher.
I did hear of Punked. I'm familiar with that.
Yeah. So that was like kind of a predecessor of Impractical Jokers, are in these prank shows, whereas Ashton Kutcher in his full on That 70s Show fame, where no one took him seriously yet, where he's kind of broken into being somewhat serious now. But it's all just him pulling all these stupid pranks on celebrities and then pop out like, "Ha, you got punked." Ha, ha, ha. I mean, that's pretty good at Ashton Kutcher impression, I think.
Yes, and the sequel to the unofficial sequel to it, the YouTube videos of "it was just a prank, bro."
Yeah. Again, I wish I would have looked up just a specific thing from Punk. It was stuff like, oh, make you think that they moved someone's car, make you think your car got stolen, or something like that.
It wasn't like the last episode, like this is what got him to stop doing it. It was something with like Brad Pitt, where like they like kidnapped Brad Pitt or something like that without his consent. There was something with a bigger actor. I'm pretty sure it was Brad Pitt, because I remember this was like a trivia answer for something, and for whatever reason locked in my head of like, oh, Brad Pitt, huh? So you cross the line somewhere with him. But that leads to like Jack A with Johnny Knoxville, same type of show, except for
Viva La Bam,
except for it's like, instead of creating a victim, so to speak, of the punks, it's like we're just gonna do it to each other. This is Impractical Jokers without a filter on it, I think.
Yeah.
So, and maybe they did filter, I don't know, but there was a lot that they did. And I mean, like, that they're still making movies today. I'm sure that they're done after the most recent one that they just had like a couple months back, but still around.
Mm-hmm. And then there's Pimp My Ride. Remember that one?
And some people are like, what do you call that, a trash show? I loved it. But we've got to talk about like the ones, and I've never watched it, and maybe that's why we haven't brought it up. But if we're talking about trash shows, some of the biggest offenders are like Jersey Shore. That took the world by storm, and again, not in a good way. I don't know like anyone who really watched the Jersey Shore. I think my wife saw like a couple episodes, because it's like when we had cable, and she's like, well, I don't know, I'll see what this looks like. And I'm like, why? I already know what it's gonna look like. It's gonna be hairspray and fake tans and weird accents and drama. That's what it's gonna be. But then
Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
Exactly, that's the other one. And I know that there's people that like Kardashians now have a following. There's people that are legitimate Kardashian fans. They are unashamed, unabashed, and so they're like, "Why are you calling this trash TV?" Well, I think the show speaks for itself. So you can
like it and know it's trash. I like Doritos, and I know that they're junk food. Like,
no, there's people that they don't view it as trash though. I know like some Kardashian fan. I'm sorry, I guess I don't know them personally, but I've like seen reviews and how people talk about them online, and there are some people like, dude, the Chloe life, or Kim forever, or all this sort of stuff, and I'm like, oh, this is an actual fandom. Okay, so.
Yeah, I wish that, going back, you know what I wish would have gotten the fame of the Kardashians is the Osbournes.
I never watched the Osbournes, but I was familiar with the program.
Yeah, it's just like crazy TV. A lot of this is stuff that I had to watch when my parents weren't watching, because they didn't want me to watch all the stuff, which for right reason for a lot of them. But
yeah, apparently my parents are right. I watched these, and I think I had some brain cells die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then the only other one on my list in this category was Cribs.
Okay,
you remember that one?
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. Again, it's another show. I don't watch reality TV. I don't feel like I miss out too much on not watching reality TV. I think the ones that we talked about that like are good, and like, okay, I've watched a couple episodes. The one show that I never watched that now is not on, but I'm like, I kind of wish I would have watched it, was The Mole. That was one of those from like the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. Are you
I don't
familiar with
remember
The
that one.
Mole at
This
all?
time, no, this time we get to flip. This time you get to explain one that I haven't heard of.
So The Mole is kind of like Survivor, but there is someone working against everyone. So it's like everyone's trying to accomplish these team goals together, and then there's a traitor amongst them, and so this traitor is trying to get them to not complete their goals. So every goal that they get, the team, like, or whoever is going to be the winner at the end or something like that, and I don't know the rules completely, but I think that there's going to be a pot that once they find the mole, that all of them get to split this pot based on how many challenges they were able to accomplish correctly. And for all the challenges that failed, the mole gets that money. And so it is like trying to not only accomplish these challenges, but also getting rid of this one person that that is destroying everything. So they have these weekly votings and stuff like that. And I'm like, this is a really cool concept. I just never watched it. So I would have watched that. If they do a reboot, I would watch it.
Yeah. You know, they don't have to reboot.
What? Survivor,
because it's still on.
Going strong, baby, going strong. Survivor and The Simpsons, two shows, and Grey's Anatomy for some reason.
Yep, because Survivor started in 2000 and it's been going ever since.
Yes, yeah, that's crazy. Simpsons has got it beat by 12 years, but Survivor technically has more seasons, I believe.
42. Yep.
Yeah, because they do two per year, exactly. Yep.
They film 2 in the spring, and then those air in the fall and the following spring.
Gotcha. Now I don't want to brag or anything, but I actually do 4 seasons a year. So
of what?
Life. They only do 2 seasons. Gotcha. Wow. Way to miss the joke. That took me
a second there. I thought you were talking about like the 2 podcasts. I'm like, are we breaking these into seasons? Or like it should...
No, of course not. When I'm putting in like the information on there, so like if you like look into like the advanced details of the podcast that you download, you'll see the correct year. But that's as far as I go in terms of anything season wise. So
yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, it took me a second there, but yeah. Let's see here. Let's just fill the time for a second there. I'm going to think of a Survivor-related trivia.
Okay, let's fill the time. So about those shrimp tails, I don't know. What are we filling the time? Oh, okay. Here, I guess we can fill the time with this. So next week, so in a couple days from now, it's going to be Palm Sunday, which the way that I always celebrate Palm Sunday, it sounds weird to say celebrate, but whenever I'm at church, it's my oldest joke. Maybe it's not my oldest joke, but it's an old joke. I'm always like, Palm Sunday, and like then I high five people. I think it's so funny. It doesn't hurt. No one dislikes a high five except for germaphobes. So like you have this energetic guy come up here on a Sunday. It's like, Happy Palm Sunday, high five. I don't know. It's my thing. I do it. So this Sunday is Palm Sunday. Enjoy it. Next Thursday, we are going to have an episode about the TV show The Chosen, because it is the best Jesus-related TV show I've ever seen. I think it's probably better in quality than even the movie Passion of the Christ, better than any other like Jesus-centered stuff I've seen, even better than Jesus Christ Superstar. I love that musical, man. I don't know if you like it at all, but The Chosen is really good. We're going to be talking about it next week. Obviously, I'm going to be bragging on it and talking favorably about it. If you haven't seen it, it's free. It's on, they have their own app where you can watch it, the Chosen app. But I think I also even saw it on like Hulu and stuff, that it's now gotten onto some other streaming platforms. So it's a free show. If you don't have any of the other streaming platforms, you can download it on Chosen, and you can watch it. It's good. So we're going to talk about that next week. Before
you mentioned Palm Sunday. You want to hear a story from way back when I was about 4 years old?
I'm nervous.
Anyway, so, at church at Palm Sunday, it was the thing that all the little kids get up there and wave palm branches so that everyone could oh, look how cute they are. Well, at the end, we were supposed to just walk down the stairs off the stage like normal. But I decided, Ninja Turtle style, to leap off the stage and yell cowabunga at the top of my lungs.
Of course you did. How'd that go?
It went great. I mean, if this wasn't 1992 where there were no cell phone cameras, I'm sure there'd be footage of it somewhere.
Well, glad that people enjoyed it. I did you get any talking tos from your parents afterwards?
I don't remember, probably. Now it's just a funny story that we tell all the time.
That's great.
So this week I have Survivor trivia, reality show trivia, but it's about Survivor because, of course, it is.
Oh,
So
real quick, before
ahead.
you do
Yep.
this week's trivia, last week's trivia, we
Yes,
talked about
last week's
Impractical
trivia.
Jokers, we asked about Gary Busey, who's a guest on Impractical Jokers a couple different times. His first appearance, he shows up and he throws water on one of the Jokers. Can you guess who it is? You have a 1 in 4 shot. If you guess Sal, you're right. Threw water right at Sal, then threw the cup at him as well. And I think you asked like a bonus of why he did it. And
Can I guess this? Because I didn't actually remember. I think I remember.
Yes.
It was a challenge where they knew someone was going to throw water in his face. He didn't know it was going to be Gary Busey. And then the guys will feed the reason into their head, and they have to get someone to agree with them that they were right. And I think it was because Sal called Gary Busey Nick Nolte.
Yes. He did. And Sal was so taken aback by Gary Busey's drama and gravitas. And then he stormed out too before even wait. He didn't he just stood there shocked. And I don't know if he even got out the question of giving the reason and all that or not. And actually I think he was about to, and then somehow Gary Busey got another cup of water and came back in and went for another shot at him. It was great. I loved it. So that's a top moment for me from Practical Jokers. A lot of fun.
Nice. And then so for this trivia, we've mentioned Boston Rob and his wife Amber, who are probably the most famous Survivor couple. How many seasons of Survivor featured Rob and or Amber out of 42?
I have a guess, but I can save it for it being done. Oh, I know. 42 of them. I'll give you a hint. It is not 42. That is not the answer. You have 41 choices left. And if you guess pie, get out. You're done.
Yep.
All right. Hey, before we end, did you have a chance to watch Moon Knight? We're recording on the day that it premiered I know it premiered last week. We've had probably 2 episodes by the time that we get here, but I watched it today. Did you see the season premiere?
I didn't. I've been too busy trying to catch up with both The Chosen and Ted Lasso because of future podcasts. Spoiler alert coming up.
No problem. It's pretty good. I like it. I'm very entertained. It's kind of like a mystery so far because he has split personalities that he's balancing, and one of them's the superhero, and the other one's kind of like the mild-mannered Steven, whatever his last name is. And so he's trying to deal with like these periods of memory loss of what has happened in this time, and then he's starting to figure out that there's more at work than he's realizing. So it's really good. I enjoyed it.
Bruce Banner.
Did you see it? So I posted from our TV guys Facebook page. I made a meme about it while I was watching it, and so you have to check that out on our page back on the 30th. So
no, I didn't see that. Did you make the same joke?
Pretty close.
Okay.
So, all right. Well, hey, it was fun. I enjoyed it. It's been real. Sorry. You had a painful look on your face, Brian, when you said about that and you had to go along with it. I'm sorry that you had to just roll with my insanity.
It's okay. This is your turn. I've been insane too.
That's really very fair. Look at this, heartwarming. We're so great. Until next time, enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your April. I'm Matt.
I'm Brian.
And we're reminding you to stay tuned and keep watching.